All right. Thank you for the introduction there. I appreciate it. I also just wanted to start off by saying I'm happy to be here. And whether this is your first conference or your 20th conference, I hope to provide you a bunch of value here today. And I remember when I was kind of talking to Kyle about this message, and one of my representatives was like, "Oh, that looks like a similar talk that I've heard before." And my response was, "Yeah." Like, you may have heard a similar talk to this before. And the reason that we have this message at almost every single meeting is because we're doing the same demo, right? We're making the same calls. It's the same job. Nothing's changed, but we're always growing, we're always improving, just like in, basketball, right? Like, free throws are always going to be there, right? But the more, the better that you get at free throws, the more points that you're going to score, the better percentages that you have, and the more games that you're going to be able to help your team win. So I've been in a ton of different situations as a representative and as a manager. And one of the things I think of that we can all relate to is that you've probably felt like you're kind of emptying the tank at different points in time, right? What do I mean by that? Well, I mean, like, when maybe this has happened to you before, but you run out of gas on the highway, right? And you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. Do I call AAA? Do I call my, mom, dad, whoever? Can I get to a gas station? You're just kind of like out of options. And I think with this job, we've all felt this way in similar points, especially with the names list. Okay. So you might be like, I have no names to call. I bet most of you have said that before or thought that before. And usually comes down to a couple different things. It's like you might be nervous to call the person. You might not be excited to call the person or the prospect that is on your list, or you very well just might not actually have people to call. Okay. So my objective for this message over the next few minutes is to help you explore and get out of the normal thinking of what your list looks like and what you can do with it. The second objective that I have is I want to be able to teach you how to execute things at a higher level. What does that mean to me? Well, to me, it means having at least 100 plus people on your list to call at all times so that you never again have those thoughts of, oh, I need to do this, or oh, I need to do that, or I got to redo my list, or this or that. Okay. So I do want you to work while I'm kind of going through this section. Okay. So the first part I'm going to talk about is just the names list and building it, and some fear bubbles that people have with the names list. And then the second part, I am going to give you some kind of advanced tips on recommendations. I remember being a Cutco rep and redoing my names list several times. I remember my one of the January trips, I think it was like 2014. And when I came back from school, this was, I didn't do appointments really at school that fall. And I came back and I'd like restart, right? I had old recommendations, but I was like, where am I going to, kickstart this thing from? And I remember doing most of that push period based on just my mom's work friends who I'd never reached out to before, being a couple years into the job at that point in time. I remember an SC2 push. I believe it was also in 2014 when I was an assistant manager, that my entire push period was based on my past customers and the recommendations that I got from them. I also remember another winter break. I believe it was 2015, where I did a lot of neighbors. I did a lot of neighbors and like people from church that I'd never really just called because for whatever reason I just didn't feel like I had to at that point in time. And then my most recent push period that I had before I opened my office, I did entirely based on like my sister's friends' parents from the high school that I went to, the Palms team, from people that I really didn't know or I'd maybe seen around or met like one time. And then there, a couple of their two sisters. I did one of my sister's boyfriend's parents, and I'll share a story on that with you after a little bit too. But It's easier to do demos with people that you know versus a recommendation. So I will first start off with saying that a recommendation has no like obligation, they have no connection with you, there's no rapport built. So it is more difficult to book recommendations if you're not fully prepared to be able to do that, right? So consult your manager on if and when, that time comes when you want to, take a couple of my advanced tips here at the end into that. But with that being said, there's going to be a couple of slides that I'm going to have on here that you probably will want to screenshot just because that's kind of what they're intended for. And a couple of them are a little bit longer, but to kind of kickstart things, the chicken list is probably where a lot of you are or struggle or have been thinking about. You may have done some of your close family, and some of you might not have done all of your family right up to this point, whether you've been here for, a, a week or a year or, a couple years. Like you might still have some family that you never showed Cutco to. And that might not be your intermediate family, but I remember doing a couple of my mom's cousins along the way that like I'd met like one time before, right? And then there's like the second gear, which is your close friends or family friends and people that you know or that know you well, and they would probably do an appointment with you if you just like connected with them, right? Then there's like the third gear, which is actually a really big category for a lot of people, and that's the chicken list, right? And that's going to help you build here a little bit, and then I'll touch on referrals at the end. Okay. So the mission, the goal of this is at the end of here that you have a lot more confidence, you have more names, and it's going to help you produce higher results and make more cash for yourself as well. So with that being said, here's some big topics that a lot of you have probably heard before, but you never have maybe taken action on, right? So at the end of this, I encourage you to make a new like top 50 list, make a new top 100, 200, 300 list, depending on how many people that you have on your names list. But one thing is like if you went to church or a synagogue or something like that, right? Think of just a couple people from each of these is really going to build up, because in my experience, when I showed a few of the people from my church, they also were like-minded. They recommended me to other people that they go to church with, right? Another one is neighbors. Okay. I know when I first started in my fast start, I did one neighbor, and that push period that I did after that, I ended up getting all of my neighbors' numbers. I either knocked on their door or I got them from white pages. Some people have a neighborhood directory, right? There's a lot of ways that you can do that. And I've probably done a dozen plus of my neighbors, right? Start easy. Start with who's the person to the right, who's the person to the right, to the left, next door, who's the person across the street, who's the person that lives behind you, right? And then kind of keep expanding from there. I remember not even a neighborhood that was mine, but I got recommended to, or maybe I showed one of my kind of high school acquaintances' mom, who I'd met like maybe once before and wasn't really close with the daughter, but she just I think she gave me her mom's number because I asked. And I remember doing the appointment for the Williams, and they recommended me to the neighbor across the street, and then that neighbor recommended me to their neighbor, and then their neighborhood, and then their neighbor next to them. And by the end of that little like kind of neighborhood or friend group, everyone owned Cutco. Some of them already did, but everyone owned Cutco. So the same thing can happen in your neighborhood where you're from. Also think like, did you grow up somewhere else? If you lived at the same house your entire life, or wherever your folks' place is, because I did a few of the neighbors from our old house. Okay. Other ones like bigger topics, like a directory that you could get to a country club. If you know somebody that goes to a country club, see if they can hook you up. If you go to a country club or you golf somewhere, whatever it is, there's a directory for it, right? So see if you can get your hands on that. And if you just get one or two people from there that you can actually do appointments for, who do you think they're going to recommend you to? Probably same people in that realm or that idea, because that's how you heard about them initially, right? What about your high school? How many people did you go to high school with? 50, Did you graduate with 50? Did you graduate with 200? Did you graduate with 600 people? Like having a high school directory, looking through the, whether it's on Facebook or the, directory or the yearbook or, whatever you have access to. A lot of times the directory already has people's numbers. Sometimes it's cell phone, sometimes it's home phone, but that's a really big one, right? And if you don't have those people's numbers, right? So if it is a yearbook or if it is just on Facebook or something like that, use the Facebook approach in the manual. Okay. I think in some manuals it's page 35. It's somewhere around there, but there's a spot in there that you can use the Facebook approach. And I put Nick's name in here to remind myself that in this is probably 2017, 2018, Nick redid a push period, and Nick was probably at 30 or 40,000 in sales at this point. So, he had some confidence in selling Cutco, and he was nervous to do it. And he messaged a bunch of his friends for their parents' numbers on Facebook. I wouldn't even call some of them friends, kind of acquaintances just from high school, right? And messaged like a couple hundred people. And from that, he got numbers from a really large chunk of them. I believe he got 42 names and numbers and booked appointments with a lot of those people because they kind of were expecting a call, right? So some of this is like effort you got to put in after this. I'm just giving you the tools that are going to help you out towards those different categories. Okay. Now with like what I'd consider a mid tier, that'd be like your friends, right? Text your friends, get their parents' numbers. I'm going to put a couple examples up here in a minute. Your siblings, siblings, friends, parents, right? So what does that look like? Well, are your siblings older or younger? I think there's an advantage to both. If they're older, they might have people in the target market, and their parents also might be in the target market. I have two younger sisters. I reached out to them. You can do what you want. I made them a contest. I was just like, hey, if you help me with if I book 5 appointments from your friends, I don't even remember what the contest was. I'll take you out for ice cream. And then I remember I was like, if you give me 10, I'll take you out to a solid dinner. And it was incentive enough, right? And from a lot of those people, it really helped with the recommendations to a lot of the other people. So I remember when I did like the Palms team, right? I kind of just got the roster and I was like, hey, listen, I'm going to say your name, but you know what happens when I say your name? People are like, oh yeah, Suzanne, Kelly, oh, they're so sweet, right? And then I was like, oh my gosh, and I haven't met you yet. And it was just like an easy intro when you can get them to, smile or laugh or have some sort of recognition with you. They're probably going to help you out, right? I think of the graduation party list. Well, for me, I had a party with my friend, the graduation party, and we had family come in from out of town and stuff like that. But I remember multiple times where somebody would just hand me a check or like hand me $20 or $50. And I was like, I don't even know who that person is, right? Like, ask mom and dad if you have the grad party list if you had one of those, right? For neighbors and for different neighborhoods, you could grab White Pages Premium. It's $20. Hey, what's the worst thing that happens? Try it out for a month. You do one appointment, you make your cash back just like that, right? But that has a lot of the cell phone numbers and stuff. You can also use fastpeoplesearch.com. It's just another resource that, again, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be better than if you didn't do it at all. Okay. Other ones, teachers. I did like my elementary school teacher. I did my middle school teacher. There's so many that I could still go back and call on, even after doing hundreds and hundreds of demos from people from elementary school, middle school teachers, high school teachers, guidance counselors, stuff like that. Right. And then what do your folks do? Start off with just a few people. I remember when my mom texted all her friends ahead of time for me to be like, hey, is it cool if my son gives you a call? See if you'll help him out with his, with his scholarship or with his new job. And like everyone was like, yeah, sure. And I got to meet a lot of my mom's coworkers that way, which I thought was awesome. Right. For this, I just take a screenshot. I'm not going to go through everything, but people that you pay to do business for, you can do business with them as well. Okay. Another one I thought of is like, how your best friend changes over time. I remember my best friend in elementary school was Brandon Nygum. In middle school, it was kind of like Michael Tibor, Jordan Stroshine. In high school, it was like Jordan Stroshine and Kyle Kirchner. In college, it was Colin Berzak, Ben Wright, right? So it kind of changed over time. And then who are some of the sports coaches or the band directors or you know, the guitar teacher, whatever it was for you that you were involved in. And then who's the most successful person that you know, right? There's a lot of little areas that you can grab from. How do you contact these people? Well, for your friends' parents, I would just say, hey, can you shoot me your mom's number? I got a quick question for you. If they ask you why, I would say, it's for my scholarship. I just want to ask them a quick question, see if they'll help me out. Don't ask them if they want to buy knives or if they have knives, because the answer is no, right? Keep it simple. Same thing for the Facebook one. Feel free to, grab a screenshot of this, okay? It's just you want to try to get the person on the phone versus do everything through a text message, because that's going to allow you to build rapport with the person. Okay. So I'm going to pause there for a second, and hopefully you've had a chance to add some people and get some different categories that you can add after this, right? So wherever you're at right now, I want you to, in the chat box real quick, just if you got 3 new people, 5 new people, 20 new people, just throw it in there. How many of you have you added so far? And I know that it's going to keep getting bigger because you're going to take the time to spend a little bit and add people to your list and shoot out some messages and put in the work to get the result that you want. Okay. Great. Even if you added a couple, right? It's better than where you were at. Okay. And you can always go back and add people and, and expand on some of those screenshots that you took. And if you didn't get any, ask your phone a friend, right? Ask your neighbor or somebody else on Zoom. Okay. Let me finish this with a couple of tips on recommendations. What I think is the most important part with recommendations is rapport. Like, they got to like you without knowing you, which is a difficult thing to do. So how do you do that? Well, one thing I think is really important is mentioning it several times throughout the demo with recommendations on that you're going to ask for them. So when are some different points that I ask for the kind of like ask for the order on recommendations even before asking them? Well, at the beginning, when I'm talking to my customer, I'm asking them about their neighbors, their family friends, the friend that they were recommended by. I'm building rapport off of those people. Hey, do you like your neighbors? Are you guys close with them? Do you do barbecues? This, that, and the other, right? So it opens up just kind of rapport that they know other people, right? So you're not going to get that objection later. Second thing is, I talk about on page 1, the direct selling association, that the only way I can grow my business is through referrals, nice people like you, right? I hope you like me enough to recommend some friends and family to me. That's another time. So, right. So I'm like 3 times in that I'm kind of like planting seeds towards recommendations. I'm going to give you a social proofing tip. When you get to a set or you get to a knife, be like, hey, I don't know if you know Janice. She's also friends with Stacy too, Janice Meyer. She actually has this set right here. And I was over to see her the other day too. You know her? Oh, that's awesome, right? And if they don't, hey, no big deal, right? So kind of name dropping friends throughout the demo, I think, helps to your sales, for one, because they're like, oh, they actually own this. And then for 2, it does help to plant the seed that, like, you've shown a lot of recommendations and this is a normal thing. Okay. Biggest tip I can give you is just memorize 16 and 17. Like, you got to be such a butt kicker, ready to rock and roll on 16 and 17 to be able to handle their objections. Okay. Ask for a lot and joke about it. 200 to 300, names and numbers, right? Incentivize them with the peeler. Okay. Take a screenshot of this. This is like after you ask for recommendations, how you can build more onto it. Okay. It's the thought joggers part. Who do you know who's a millionaire? Who do you know who owns a boat? Who do you know that lives in this neighborhood? Right. This is going to help you maximize your leads and your recommendations. And then my one tip on qualifying them, I would also grab a screenshot of this, is these questions right here, right? So if these are my 5 recommendations, I'm going to ask, like, hey, what's Jennifer's husband's name? Okay, great. Because in case he answers, I want to know his name. Or even if he doesn't, I can name drop and be like, yeah, she told me that, you, Jennifer, and your husband, Mark, were super nice, right? So it's more of a home feeling. Do they have kids, right? Do you guys have any kids where they go to school? Okay. This is her number, right? And then I think the big one that's kind of fun that you can build rapport off of is what's something that she loves to flaunt, right? What's something she's good at or proud of? What's the best time to call? What area do they live in? So these things right here are going to help you a lot, and do this with each one of these recommendations. I would do it with Jennifer. I would do it with Sally Jones. People love talking about their friends. Okay. And then you got to shoot them the heads up text. Here's my heads up text. I have them send it to them on the demo, because if they don't do it on the demo, they're not going to do it. Okay. So have them send this text on the demo to their friends. That way you can get some traction before the demo even finishes. Okay. So the heads up text moving forward is important to build that rapport with people. This makes making phone calls and booking demos a lot easier when you say, hey, here's my connection with you, or hey, your friend recommended me. We just, we were on Zoom yesterday together. Oh yeah, that rings a bell, right? It's going to be easier to build on your appointments with people that you know. Okay. And just driving a fast car versus running out of gas is a lot easier, and makes the job a little bit more enjoyable at the same time. So that's what I got. Thanks so much for your time. Hopefully you got some value from the message, and I'll see you at the next conference.